All right, well, my job is to stay out of the way while the big boys are using the excavator. Let me share a little bit about some of the logistics we worked on today. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I'm on a job site like I've been on other job sites in the past, and we've had some of the interactions today. So we've had the bulldozer get out there, the skid steer get out there, we had the excavator get out there. They're primarily getting logs and stumps and different stuff out of the ground, because the bucket on the excavator does really good getting the stumps out of the ground, but doesn't move a whole lot of soil, where the skid steer moves a lot of soil but is not good at getting the stumps out of the ground. Next, we worked with the dump truck operator who came in here and dropped us off some number 357 stone, which is a road-based stone that we're going to use in the bottom of the level terrace once it's here. And then I also cleared to make sure that the operator of the dump truck felt comfortable driving all the way back here to where we're at doing the work. Because again, when you have materials come on site, you only want to move the materials one time. We only want to scrape the topsoil off this one time, get it aside. Then we want to pull our clay fill from the earthworks here to fill the level terrace. It's going to have a gravel pad on it. And then as we start bringing that gravel in and tracking it in, we don't want to move it too many times. We want to move it one time, put it in our designated area. Once it's in the designated area, it's going to get tracked in, but it's not just dump it on the ground. We have a elevation increase of 4 foot on the bottom of the area, which means we've got to cut a trench, and then we've got to get our clay mounded in there and tracked in for compaction. So first get off the topsoil, set that aside, and then we get that mounded area built up, and then start bringing all this clay and dirt back here. So we have done some tests to see if there's enough clay out here and how far down do we have to go to get to it. And then as the stumps are grubbed, we're kind of building a mental map of what we're working with. Now all of the topsoil is going to come off and get reserved on the side. Remember, it takes years to make topsoil, so it's going to get taken off, reserved on the side, along with all this other brush. Now on typical sites, they're going to mound all that stuff up and burn it. That's not what we do here. We're going to mound it up off to the side, out of the way. Then I'll pick through it or make hugelkultures with it, or just get little nooks of dirt out and then move it to some kind of like an herb garden or something like that. This area here, once it's all cleared out, topsoil stripped off, it's going to be down to the clay, and then maybe we'll be able to put a little bit of that topsoil back on there, but it's going to have to be in grass and going to have to be growing quick. So you guys saw my videos where I went from hard clay to pasture grass, and that's kind of what we're going to do here. We use an erosion control mix, and we use straw, and we get that in. Now the rocks, 2 loads of rock, or road-based 2-inch rock, that was about $1,200. And your prices will vary depending on your distance from a quarry. But again, in my brain, I'm doing the math, because it's not just laying out a gravel pad one time, hope it works. We actually have to build the gravel pad with proper drainage, proper depth and compaction, so that when we put the containers down there, the containers are stable. And of course the containers will be 6 to 8 inches off the ground, so that we'll have airflow, and the gravel pad itself is meant for drainage. We want all that drainage to go straight down, and that way it'll soak into the ground and make your space more stable over time, rather than run through the gravel and wash off the corners and stuff, or saturate the gravel and stay. So again, when we draw up a project plan, a lot of people just think they can put it on the back of a napkin, but if you actually want this thing to happen, we draw up a project plan, we build out the phases, we set up our vendors lists, who's our operators, what are their schedule, even for a homestead, and then we actually get the work done in a systematic way. Now again, while he's operating that equipment, I don't need to be out there watching him and making him nervous or anything like that. I've already gone around and picked up sticks and spray painted where the rocks are. He's basically going to work from the bottom up, grubbing the stumps, loosening up the topsoil, identifying where there's rocks, and then the skid steer can get back to work again, moving off the topsoil as we reveal the clay underneath. Be sure to ask your questions below. I know a lot of folks are saying, well, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. If you haven't run a construction project before, or if you haven't ran a land project before, or you don't have a long-term plan overall, you can learn how these things work, but you'll spend extra money if you don't. You'll spend the extra money that's not necessary. It's money that could be used for other projects later, but it does take understanding, number one, what you're trying to achieve and the specifications for what you're trying to achieve. Number three is the amount of materials that you're going to need. Number four is the resources and people to contact who can get you those materials or operate equipment. Number five is the solid construction use of the equipment. Then there's also permits and land disturbance permits and things like that. Now we're on an agricultural property, we're under the limit of disturbance area, but ultimately it's a little bit more than just cutting a space in the woods. I highly recommend you hire subs and you hire qualified contractors, people that know what they're doing, and then you manage the outcome. And then you do a lot of running around. I pick up the tools. If he blows that horn, I'm gonna drop everything, run over there and figure out what he needs. This kind of stuff all has to work together. Now, the benefit of it all working together is that your projects come in faster, more consistently, and then you don't have a bunch of fixes to do for it in the future. I've already surveyed out my distance from property lines, my solar angles, all that was on paper long before we got this started. Now, when you're financially doing these projects, I'm constantly scaling back. I'm constantly adjusting things to make sure that we have the what's going. Like, I know that it's gonna be about $600 a load for my rock. It might be more for my smaller number 57 stone. I know the two loads I have here might not go in because that first compaction has got to be a certain way. Now, you don't have to be a construction manager to do this. There are things that I'm not qualified to do this for a highway project. But again, I could do it for my own projects. I could do it for private clients in the sense of the planning and design. And then I often defer to people that are highly qualified to do this rather than trying to do it yourself. If I would have rented a skid steer and rented a excavator, and I had a track pop off, or I had the inefficiency of use, I'd spend twice as much money doing the job. It's better to pay once and get the right person in here to do the job, to have the right design plan in advance, to have the right connections with people who can do this stuff, than it is to pay many times by thinking you're saving money. This project is rated as if everybody's getting paid at least minimum wage. But you know what? You can't hire an operator for minimum wage. I'm not saving money cutting corners. The only way you save money is get the right people to help you with the job, get the right plan and direction of the plan, and number three is to do the plan in phases in a methodology called ratcheting. So if you get phase one finished, it's done. You're never going to go back. That's a foundation to launch your phase two. So in this case, getting 2 containers on site is the goal, and later it will turn into a barn. In the short term, we'll start getting animals out here. So it doesn't have to be nice and neat. It has to be erosion stable. It has to be implemented correctly, and then ultimately putting the buildings in the right orientation. So I know I've covered a lot here, folks, and the way I always close these videos is to make sure that if you have questions, you can ask your questions for free. Okay, you visit www.prosperityhomestead.org. You go to the contact page and you ask your questions. If you have project suggestions, maybe you see something that doesn't make sense, you put that in the comments below. Let's make this interactive, because I want you to be standing where I am right now. Okay, I want you standing on your job site, on your home site, on your homestead, on your small farm. I want you standing on that new fence line that you just finished up, on that new watering system, on your animals healthy and on hooves on land, so that you can be where you need for food security, for personal security, for moving forward on your dream. And even if this was just a hunting cabin out here, I want to make sure that happens rather than just the next YouTube video. So I know majority of you guys are men, so I can speak to you like men. if you've watched more than one YouTube video on this kind of stuff and you didn't get out a piece of graph paper and a pencil and start drawing your plan up, and you didn't start looking at materials lists and things, that I have failed you. I want to make sure that you have what's necessary. When you click the link below, there'll be an opt-in for a land management program. And I would like to start doing that workshop to answer your questions so that you can be on site with habitat restoration, with your homestead site, with your hunting lodge, with trail installations, and all the things that are going to make your land usable now rather than in the future. And so that you can start getting this in place, so you can start getting results for your family, for your home, so you can start enjoying this kind of thing. I know you might be sitting at a desk most of the time, but I can show you how to make it work. I can show you how to get the results, and then you can start living the dream rather than dreaming the dream. You'll come up with new dreams later. I got all the sun in my face here. You'll come up with new dreams later. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to work. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Click the link below to learn more about land management. Visit our website at www.prosperityhomestead.org to ask your general questions. See you in the next one.